My 13-year-old niece scoffed, "You're only here because you pay for everything," while flaunting the handbag I bought her. Nobody laughed. I shut down every account. The next morning, they found an envelope on the kitchen counter, and now they all are panicking. I, 34M, had always been the guy who showed up. The guy who fixed things. The guy who wrote checks without keeping score. My sister and her family lived in a house I co-signed for when her credit wouldn't stretch far enough. Her husband worked sporadically, always chasing the next big opportunity that never quite materialized. Their 3 kids, my niece being the oldest at 13, had closets full of clothes I bought, phones on a plan I paid for, and college funds I contributed to monthly. Nobody asked me to do any of it. I just did. Because that's what family does, right? The dinner started like any other Sunday gathering at their place. My sister had texted me earlier that week about getting together, mentioning nothing special, just the usual family time. I arrived with bags of groceries because I'd noticed their pantry looking sparse the last time I visited, and I'd picked up that designer handbag my niece had been obsessing over for months. The kind with the interlocking letters that cost more than some people's monthly rent. She'd shown me pictures on her phone during our last conversation, talking about how all her friends had one, how she'd be the only one left out. I didn't have kids of my own. Spoiling my nieces and nephews felt like enough. My niece practically tackled me when I handed her the bag. She tore through the wrapping, squealed when she saw the logo, and immediately started taking selfies with it. My sister hugged me, thanked me, said I was too generous. Her husband nodded from the couch, barely looking up from his phone. Standard operating procedure. Dinner was loud. The younger kids argued over who got the last piece of garlic bread. My brother-in-law complained about his boss, about the economy, about how impossible it was to get ahead anymore. My sister mentioned needing new tires for the car. I made a mental note, already calculating which credit card had enough room for the expense. This was my role. This was comfortable. Then my niece said it. We were clearing plates, and I was loading the dishwasher because that's what I did, when my sister made some comment about me always being so helpful, so present in their lives. My niece looked up from her phone, the new handbag dangling from her shoulder, and the words came out casual, almost bored. She told everyone I was only there because I paid for everything, not because they actually wanted me around. She said it like she was commenting on the weather, like it was obvious, like everyone already knew. The kitchen went silent. My sister's fork clattered against her plate. My brother-in-law coughed. The younger kids stared. I stood there with a plate in my hands, soap suds dripping onto the floor, waiting for someone to say something. Waiting for my sister to correct her daughter. Waiting for anyone to laugh it off, to tell my niece that was inappropriate, to acknowledge that what she'd just said was cruel. Nobody did. My sister looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. My brother-in-law shifted in his seat. The moment stretched out, thick and suffocating, and I realized something that made my chest tight. They were uncomfortable because she'd said it out loud. Not because it wasn't true. Not because they disagreed. But because I wasn't supposed to know that's how they saw me. I was the ATM. The wallet with legs. Useful. Necessary. But not actually wanted. I set the plate down carefully. Told them I needed to leave. Remembered something I had to take care of. My sister protested weakly. Said I didn't have to go. But her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I walked out without looking back. My niece was already back on her phone, taking more pictures with the handbag. The drive home took 20 minutes, but felt like 20 seconds. My mind was racing, replaying every family dinner, every birthday party, every crisis I'd stepped in to solve. I thought about the time I'd paid for my sister's husband's car repair when he couldn't make rent. The summer I'd funded their beach vacation because the kids deserved good memories. The countless times I'd picked up the check without hesitation, without expecting anything except to be part of a family that apparently tolerated me for my bank account. I got home and went straight to my computer. Opened every account, every automatic payment, every shared access I'd set up over the years. The house payment I co-signed for. I scheduled a meeting with the bank for Monday morning to discuss my options. The car insurance I covered for my sister's vehicle. I set a cancellation date 30 days out. The phone plan with all 4 of their lines. Disconnection scheduled. The credit cards I'd given my sister for emergencies. I froze them. The college funds I'd been contributing to. I changed the beneficiaries and stipulated the money would only be accessible through an independent trustee, requiring documented proof of appreciation and genuine relationship before any distributions. Every subscription, Every automatic transfer, every financial connection I had to their lives, I severed it. It took 3 hours. When I finished, the apartment felt different. Quieter. I poured myself a drink and sat in the dark, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was being petty, if 13-year-olds just said stupid things sometimes. But it wasn't just her. It was the silence after. It was the fact that nobody defended me. Nobody valued me enough to tell her she was wrong. I didn't sleep much. Monday morning, I got up early, showered, dressed, and drove to their house before anyone would be awake. I had an envelope. Inside was a single page listing every account I'd closed, every payment I'd stopped, every financial tie I'd cut. At the bottom, I'd written one sentence. I told them that since my only value was monetary, and since that clearly wasn't enough to earn genuine affection or respect, I was removing the one thing they apparently cared about. They could figure out the rest on their own. I left it on their kitchen counter. I still had the spare key from when I'd watched their house last summer. I didn't take it with me. I left it next to the envelope. Update 1. The call started around 9 in the morning. I was in a meeting with the bank, discussing the co-signed mortgage, when my phone started buzzing. My sister. 3 calls. 4. 5. Voicemails piling up. Text messages flooding in, each one more panicked than the last. She was asking what was going on, why the accounts were closed, whether there was some kind of mistake. Her husband called next. Then my niece, crying, saying she was sorry, that she didn't mean it. I silenced my phone and focused on the banker explaining my options. Turned out, because I was a co-signer, I couldn't just walk away from the mortgage without serious financial consequences. But I could stop making the payments. I could let them handle it. The banker was sympathetic. She'd seen family financial entanglements explode before. She walked me through everything, helped me understand exactly what would happen if they defaulted. I didn't want to destroy their credit, but I wasn't going to keep propping up people who saw me as nothing more than a checkbook. By the time I left the bank, I had 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. My sister was begging me to call her back. Her messages went from confused to angry to desperate. She was asking how they were supposed to pay the mortgage, how the kids were supposed to keep their phones, what they were supposed to do about the car insurance that was due. Her husband sent a long message about how I was being unreasonable, how one stupid comment from a teenager shouldn't blow up the whole family. My niece's messages were incoherent, full of apologies and promises that she'd never say anything like that again. I didn't respond to any of them. I went to work, sat through meetings, answered emails, and let my phone buzz itself into silence. Around lunchtime, my sister showed up at my office. The receptionist called me, asked if I was available for a visitor. I told her I wasn't. My sister waited in the lobby for 2 hours. I left through the back entrance. That evening, I finally listened to the voicemails. My sister was crying in the first one, saying she needed to talk to me, that this was all a misunderstanding. By the third one, her tone had shifted. She was telling me I was being cruel, that I was punishing innocent kids for one mistake. Her husband's voicemail was threatening. He said I was going to regret this, that family doesn't turn on each other like this, that I was showing my true colors. My niece's voicemail was barely intelligible through the sobbing. She kept saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she didn't know what she was saying. I sat with those messages for a long time. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. But then I remembered that silence in the kitchen. I remembered how none of them had defended me, how they'd let a 13-year-old speak to me like I was nothing and hadn't said a word. The guilt faded. Update 2. 3 days after I left the envelope, my sister showed up at my apartment. I'd been expecting it. She looked terrible, eyes swollen, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago based on the coffee stain I'd seen in one of her desperate selfie videos she'd sent trying to guilt me into responding. I let her in because refusing felt like it would cause more problems than it solved. She sat on my couch and immediately launched into explanations. She told me my niece was just a kid, that teenagers said thoughtless things all the time, that I was taking it too personally. She said she'd talked to her daughter, that my niece understood what she'd done wrong, that she was devastated. I asked her why she hadn't said anything in the moment, why she'd let her daughter humiliate me without consequence. My sister got defensive. She said she was shocked, that she didn't know what to say, that she was going to address it after I left, but I'd walked out too quickly. I asked her why her husband hadn't said anything, why neither of them had stood up for me. She didn't have an answer for that. The silence stretched between us. heavy with years of unspoken dynamics. Then she started talking about the money, about how they couldn't afford the mortgage without my help, about how the kids needed their phones for school, about how the car insurance lapsing could get them in legal trouble. She said I was punishing the whole family for one person's mistake. I told her that one person's mistake had revealed how the whole family actually felt, that my niece had just been honest about what everyone was thinking. She denied it, said that wasn't true, said they all loved me. I asked her to leave. She started crying, begging me to reconsider. She said her husband was furious, that they were fighting constantly, that the stress was destroying their family. She said the kids were confused and scared. She said I was the only family she had, that our parents were gone, that she needed me. I told her she needed my money. She needed the safety net. She didn't need me. If she needed me, she would have defended me. If she valued me, she would have shut down her daughter's comment immediately. If I mattered as anything other than a resource, someone in that kitchen would have spoken up. She left crying. I poured myself a drink and stared at the wall until midnight. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks now. The calls have mostly stopped. My sister sends occasional text messages, updates about how they're struggling, how they're trying to figure things out, how she hopes I'll reconsider. I don't respond. My brother-in-law sent one final message calling me selfish and vindictive. My niece's messages have stopped entirely. I met with a lawyer to make sure I was protected legally. The co-signed mortgage was the biggest issue, but the lawyer found some options. I could force a sale of the house if they couldn't maintain payments, or I could negotiate a buyout where they refinanced without me. Either way, I was making it clear I wasn't going to be their financial safety net anymore. The hardest part wasn't cutting them off. It was realizing how much of my identity had been wrapped up in being needed. I'd built my entire relationship with my sister's family around being useful, being generous, being the one who solved problems. When that was stripped away, I had to confront what was actually left. The answer was painful. Not much. I started going to therapy. My therapist asked me why I'd been so willing to fund their lives without expecting anything in return. I told her it felt good to help people. She asked me if it felt good or if it felt necessary. If I was buying affection because I was afraid of not being loved otherwise. I didn't have an answer. My sister called yesterday. Her tone was different. Calm. Resigned. She said they were going to figure things out on their own, that they didn't need my help, that they'd manage. I could hear the lie in her voice. I could hear the desperation underneath the pride. She said she hoped someday I'd be able to forgive them, that she hoped we could repair things, but that she understood if I needed space. She said she was sorry, that she should have said something in the kitchen that night, that she'd failed me as a sister. I told her I appreciated the apology, that I needed time, that I wasn't sure what our relationship would look like moving forward, but it wasn't going to look like it did before. She said she understood. We hung up. I don't know if I did the right thing. I don't know if cutting them off completely was the answer or if I should have just set boundaries, should have reduced support gradually instead of severing everything at once. What I do know is that I'm not a bank account. I'm not a resource to be exploited, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering if people love me or just love what I can do for them. The envelope on their kitchen counter changed everything. Maybe it destroyed my relationship with my sister. Maybe it taught them a lesson. Maybe it just made me the villain in their story. But for the first time in years, I'm not performing. I'm not proving my worth through deposits and payments. I'm just existing, and that has to be enough. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.